Alright, when we're walking on the cottage panel, we want to stay on the bottom nose of each course. You can walk just like so. Alright, when we're doing our layout with our cottage panel, you can see about 13 inches in from my left side, we have what we call a hip point. Now we'll just go ahead and take the left side of my next panel as I'm going up with my stagger. And like I said, it's approximately 13 inches from the edge. The following is our standard method when we're fastening our cottage panel. If you're in a high wind zone, make sure you look at the manual and adjust accordingly. So every full panel is going to have 6 fasteners. I got them marked here in white chalk, as you can see. We'll have 2 in the back, so I got 1, 2 in the back. And then we'll have 1 on our side lap when it overlaps another panel. And then we'll have the 1, 2, 3 along the front nose. Now this is a left to right panel. So you can see here, left to right only. So I got my side lap that's going to be underneath the panels with these ribs. Next panel comes over the top and fits nice and tight, just like so. If I'm too far one way and see a rib, or too far this way, it's not going to sit down nice and tight. So make sure we're where we need to be on that side lap. Now you can see the bottom row. Since we have our 1/2 inch overhang, we're going to go down through the top. So you can see they're marked in white here, 1, 2, 3. So they're just going to go down. You can go about 2 inches up from the edge and go down into the decking. Okay? And then you can see overlap the next panel, come back with the same idea. Now on the bottom row, or anytime you go down through the top behind like a chimney or a skylight, we're going to go ahead and take our caulking. Okay? We're going to caulk those fasteners. And then we're going to come back with our touch-up granules and put that to cover that caulking up. Just to give it a little extra protection and make it look nice. Now when we get to the second row and the rest of the roof, we're going to be coming down through the front nose. So you can see when I overlap a panel here, I'm going to have my fasteners in the front nose, 1, 2, 3. Since we're overlapping a panel, we'll have 1 in our side lap, and then we'll have 2 on top. So just to demonstrate how these go in, you can see in the front nose here, we're going to make sure the panel's pushed down, go down on an angle to get back down into the decking. Just like so. On our side lap, same idea. We're just going to come in the side lap, make sure it's pushed down, come down on that angle to get that fastener into the decking. And then once we get to our top row, so you got 1 and then 2 here. We go down, we just want to make sure we don't over tighten this. Keep that just shy of the decking on that back shelf. And then we'll continue with our fasteners. As you can see here, once we overlap our panel, same thing on the bottom in the side lap. Same here, make sure my side lap's good, and then we'll fasten as normal. Alright, option 2 on our stagger. You can see if this is our rake line or straight edge. We're going to go ahead and do a full panel, 13 inches from our rake, 3, 10 inches, 18, and then back to a full. The following is our standard method when we're fastening our cottage panel. If you're in a high wind zone, make sure you look at the manual and adjust accordingly. So every full panel is going to have 6 fasteners. I got them marked here in white chalk, as you can see. We'll have 2 in the back, so I got 1, 2 in the back. And then we'll have 1 on our side lap when it overlaps another panel. And then we'll have the 1, 2, 3 along the front nose. Now this is a left to right panel. So you can see here, left to right only. So I got my side lap that's going to be underneath the panels with these ribs. Next panel comes over the top and fits nice and tight, just like so. If I'm too far one way and see a rib, or too far this way, it's not going to sit down nice and tight. So make sure we're where we need to be on that side lap. Now you can see the bottom row, since we have our 1/2 inch overhang, we're going to go down through the top. So you can see they're marked in white here, 1, 2, 3. So they're just going to go down. You can go about 2 inches up from the edge and go down into the decking. Okay? And then you can see overlap the next panel, come back with the same idea. Now on the bottom row, or anytime you go down through the top behind like a chimney or a skylight, we're going to go ahead and take our caulking. Okay? We're going to caulk those fasteners. And then we're going to come back with our touch-up granules and put that to cover that caulking up. Just to give it a little extra protection and make it look nice. Now when we get to the second row and the rest of the roof, we're going to be coming down through the front nose. So you can see when I overlap a panel here, I'm going to have my fasteners in the front nose, 1, 2, 3. Since we're overlapping a panel, we'll have 1 in our side lap, and then we'll have 2 on top. So just to demonstrate how these go in, you can see in the front nose here, we're going to make sure the panel's pushed down, go down on an angle to get back down into the decking. Just like so. On our side lap, same idea. We're just going to come in the side lap, make sure it's pushed down, come down on that angle to get that fastener into the decking. And then once we get to our top row, so you got 1 and then 2 here. We go down, we just want to make sure we don't over tighten this. Keep that just shy of the decking on that back shelf. And then we'll continue with our fasteners. As you can see here, once we overlap our panel, same thing on the bottom in the side lap. Same here, make sure my side lap's good, and then we'll fasten as normal. Alright, when we're doing our cottage directed deck with our bend up method, we're going to go ahead and put our drip edge along our eave, come back with our code approved underlayment over the top. And we'll come back with our strip edge on our rake, make sure I wrap my corners. Then we're going to come back with our EBS, elevated batten system. If I don't have this, go ahead and do a 2x2 and a 1x2. And then we're going to go ahead and put this in 3 inches in from my edge. And you can play with this a little bit. You can adjust that accordingly. Hold it a couple inches off of the eave line. And go ahead and fasten through every puck. And then we can come back with our gutterizer. And then we're going to go ahead and bring this flush to our 2x2 and also flush with my drip edge. Fasten that every 16 inches. And then with the cottage drip or cottage panel, we're going to go ahead and need a 1/2 inch overhang off of my drip edge. So we're going to go ahead and mark this, which is going to be approximately 13.5 inches. To achieve that 1/2 inch, you can adjust that accordingly if my eave lines aren't straight. And go ahead and mark that 13.5 inches. Grab your chalk line and go ahead and chalk that line. That way we start our first panels nice and straight and we have our 1/2 inch overhang. Alright, once we get our filled panels in, we're ready to measure our rake panels. We're just going to measure them into the 2x2. Once again, we're going to find a profile. We don't want to measure from the edge, but we'll find a profile. On the right side of the cottage is going to be right at that bend. We're going to go ahead and do our measurement into that 2x2 minus 1/4 inch. That way we don't fight it when we're installing it. Once we get that measurement, write it down. We're going to start measuring from the eave up to the ridge. Writing those measurements down in order. And then once we get our list, we'll take this down and do our cuts and bends. Alright, when we're doing our rake cuts, for a cut and bend direct to deck, we'll go ahead and get our measurements from the roof, put in order from the eave to the ridge. We'll come down, we'll find that same profile, and we'll go ahead and do our bend line, and then we can use a 2x2 to create a straight line for our bend line and our cut line. Bring it over to the cutter. And go ahead, bring it to the bender. See, we have the fold up. We'll put that in our pile. That's in order from the eave to the ridge, handed up for installation. Alright, so once we get done cutting and bending our panels, we'll have them in a pile from the eave to the ridge. Go ahead and bring that up. And we'll go ahead and just start installing the panels with that bend going up against the 2x2. And the install is normal. Getting fasteners in your front. Also your back shelf. And once we get that one on, just go ahead and come back with the next panel, have your pile in order. And we'll just continue fastening. Putting fasteners in the front shelf and the back shelf. Finish up to your ridge. Alright, so when we're doing our 5E prep work for direct to deck, you want to do the following steps. So first of all, you get your drip edge on, underlayment over the top, and then you're ready to go ahead and put your valley in. So option one, I can go ahead and take my valley and cut my eave line out, and then go ahead and overhang the entire width of the valley, minimum of 3/4 of an inch. And then we can go ahead and fasten this with our 1/4 inch hex head neoprene washered screws. They'll go on the outside of the valley pan on both sides every 2 feet, going up either side. Now when I do my valley metal down, I can go ahead and bring my gutter riser flush with my valley. I can bring it to the first V, or I can bring it to the second V on top here. Make sure to put no fasteners in the gutter riser over the valley pan so that water can weep out underneath the gutter riser. Only fasten along the eave line outside the valley pan. Now the other option, if we don't want to see these ribs or this painted metal coming out of the eave line, we can create a valley extension. So a valley extension is made from our stone coated steel flat stock. I'm going to create a water stop on either side, and then I can go ahead and do a fold over hem on the bottom of this as well. So now we're going to go ahead and overhang this the minimum of 3/4 of an inch over our eave line. Then we'll take our caulking, go ahead and do 2 lines of caulking, and then we will slide our valley into that valley extension. So now all you'll see coming out of the eave line will be the stone coat to match my panels. And then we can come back with our fasteners every 2 feet on the outside on either side of the valley pan. And then every 2 feet going up. Then we'll come back with our gutter riser and bring that even to my valley and fasten as normal. Alright, when we get our filled panels on, we're ready to measure our valleys. We got a couple options. We can do open or closed. If we want to do open, we're going to measure to that first small V right on the outside of it on either side. So we'll measure right there and do a fold down. Here we're going to be showing a closed, so we're going to measure to the inside rib. Now when we're measuring these, you want to find a profile. So with the cottage, you're going to find not the edge, but that first bend. And then we'll measure at the bend here, and then the front nose bend as well. So we'll have 2 measurements per panel. So we'll come out, measure into there, and we're going to measure to that profile that we found, top and bottom. And then we'll go ahead and write those measurements down. Then we'll come up to the next row, measure the bottom, measure the top, write those down, and keep them in order all the way up to the ridge. Alright, when we're cutting our panels for our 5E valley, we'll go ahead and get our measurements that we got from the roof. And we're going to find that profile, get that top measurement and your bottom measurement. That will be your bend line. So then we're going to take our straight edge, mark our bend line, and then approximately 1 inch from the bend line, we're going to go ahead and do our cut line as well. We're going to go ahead and take that over to our cutter. And then we'll take it over to the bender and bend it on those bend lines. And once we get all of our pile that's in order from eave to ridge, we'll go ahead and hand that up for installation. Alright, once we get our panels all cut and bent, bring them up to the roof, be ready to install. They're going to be in order from eave to ridge. Take that first panel, place it as normal, make sure I'm staying straight in my valleys. And then we can start installing the panel, getting screws in regular places, back shelf as well. And once we get that first panel in, we can just take the next panel from our pile and start installing those as normal. And just continue up the roof with those panels in order. Getting fasteners in the front and the back. Now when you need to fasten panels over the valley pan, we do not put our 2.5 inch screws over the valley pan. We're going to use our 3/4 inch stitch screws, and we can stitch those panels together with those 3/4 inch stitch screws over the valley pan. Now you have different options as far as doing open or closed. We're showing a closed here, so I can do a closed here and just leave it like that. If I want to do an open, we're just going to measure to our first V, still do our fold down, and then that panel will just be that first V, keeping it open like so. And then the third option is going to be using our valley cover. So our valley cover is just going to go over the top like this. So we can use that one. If you're in a really heavily treed area, you can put something like our M-sill on either side all the way up. And that'll be pushed down in there and not letting those leaves into the system. But either way you go about it, we're going to go ahead and just put this down here, center this in the valley line, and then we're going to stitch screw it to the panels using our 3/4 inch stitch screw. And we're going to put fasteners on either side on each nose of panel. And continue on up the roof. All right, when placing my hip battens, we're going to go ahead and use our 2x2 EBS, or we can use a 1x2 and a 2x2. From outside to outside, they need to be placed 5 inches, and they need to be centered with my hip line and make sure they're straight so my cap stays straight. Then go ahead and finish your gutter riser around your perimeter. All right, when we get our fill panels in, we're ready to measure our hip. We're going to go ahead and find that profile off of the hip. We don't want to go off the edge of the panel, but on the cottage, there's going to be that first bend. We'll measure there, and we'll get a bottom measurement and a top measurement. And we'll measure to the 2x2 minus a 1/4 inch from the 2x2. That way we don't fight ourselves. So we'll go ahead and get that measurement. Bottom measurement, write it down. Top measurement. We'll write that one down as well. So each panel will have 2 measurements. And we're going to go ahead and just continue up the roof, writing those measurements down as we measure them. And then we'll take our list down to the cutter and bender. All right, we're ready to do our cut panels for our hip. We'll go ahead and get our measurements we got from the roof. And then we're going to go ahead and find that same profile. We'll measure our bottom measurement down here along the bottom, our top along the top. Go ahead and take that straight line, and we'll create a straight line for our bend line and our cut line. Take that to the cutter. Cut along that cut line, bring it to the bender. And bend that up on the bender. And we'll have this and put it in our pile, and once we get our pile from the eave to the ridge, we'll go ahead and hand that up for installation. Alright, so once we get our stack cut and bent, we're going to go ahead and bring it up, and it'll be in order from eave to ridge. Go ahead and take that first panel, place it. We'll have our fold up for 2x2s, then we can go ahead and fasten that as normal. Fasten it down to the bottom here. And also in our top shelf. Then we'll just take our next panel from our pile. Place that one as well. Just continue fastening those going up the roof. And then just continue to go up the roof. Fastening as we go. Continue to the ridge. Alright, so when we're doing our build up on our ridge, you have a few different options. You can do a traditional stack of 2x2s. The height is always going to change depending on the pitch and the construction of the project. But you can do a traditional stack, as you can see we have here. Just 2 straight up. Some guys will like to do 4 of them, so you have one on either side. Then you'll make sure they're only 5 inches apart max. That way the cap can fit over the top, and then they'll fold the panel up that. The other option is going to be our ridge riser brackets. And so in this way I only have one 2x2, and then I can control the height by putting a bend on the ridge riser bracket, and then those will be just fastened down with a screw into the decking and a screw into my 2x2. So this way I only have one 2x2. All are acceptable, just kind of depends on personal preference. Alright, we're cutting our head wall or our ridge on a direct deck bend up method. Go ahead and get your measurements from the roof. Mark those on the panel. That will be your bend line. Go ahead and take your straight edge, mark that bend line, and then 2 inches up, we're going to go ahead and mark our cut line. Now horizontal ones, we want to go ahead and bend first. I'm going to put that on the back of the panel here. Hold that up, and then we'll come back over and do the cutting. Then once we get them all bent and cut, we'll go ahead and hand that pile up to the roof for installation. Alright, once we've measured this, cut and bent our panels up on our ridge, or this would be the same for a head wall as well, we'll go ahead and put this in. You're going to want to put one fastener in the left side, then form this on the right side so it's up nice and tight. And then you'll push down the middle, fasten the middle. And then we're going to go ahead and fold up 2 inches, and we want that even with our 2x. So we'll go ahead and get that even and place fasteners in the backs, bend up as well. Alright, when we're playing with our ridge vent with direct deck bend up method, you can see I'm going to have my build up. Go ahead and cut my attic space. I'm going to incorporate your ridge vent. Then we're going to go ahead and bend our panel up 2 inches. And we're going to go to our venting material. And then we'll just install that as normal. Getting fasteners in the front, our side laps, and into our back header. Make sure we don't over tighten these. We don't want to compress our ridge vent. So we're keeping that 3/4 inch spacing there. Then we'll come back with our caps. The caps will come over the top, and we want to make sure we have a 1/2 inch space from our panel to our cap. And we'll go ahead and fasten these down into our 2x2 header. Making sure we have that 1/2 inch space. And the fasteners will be one on either side going into my 2x2. Make sure we have that space for the venting. Right, once we get our panels on, fold over our bends if they're a little long onto the 2x2, and we'll go ahead and start doing our rake caps. So first we're going to take our 6-inch end disc. We're going to place it in here. You can see just modified it by bending and cutting. Put that in with our 3/4 inch stitch screws. And then depending on where we put our batten, we can kind of play with this in and out, but here it's at 3 inches. And we'll just put a 90-degree bend on one side of that cap. It's going to fit on just like so, and make sure that end cap's up nice and tight. Then we'll just come back with our fasteners. We're going to go one into that 2x2 through the top, just like so. Then we'll get one on the fascia side. Just like so. And then we'll just go ahead and have that 90-degree bend on there. Put them tight on there. Make sure they're sitting on our fascia. Fasten down into that 2x2. And then one into the fascia. And we'll continue going up our rake to the top. Now the fasteners down through the top, just like my bottom row, I will go ahead and take my caulking and caulk those, and then come back with my granules for my touch-up kit and put those into that caulking. When we come to a rake and ridge intersection, you want to do the following steps for your bend up method. So we'll go ahead and notch our first cap. Place that just like so. Make sure I have some extending past. And we'll install that as normal. Fasteners on the front side. And my fascia side. And then we're going to find our miter that's going to be even with our fascia. And then we'll go ahead, come over just like that. Make sure that's a nice straight miter. And fasten that one. Then we'll go ahead and take our caulking. Caulk across this. Then we're going to come back with our cap and just notch where the ridge cap runs into my rake cap on either side. And you can see we'll just have that right over the top, just like that. And go ahead and fasten that one. Into my 2x2 on either side. Then we can go ahead and start running our ridge. Fasten that down into my 2x2. Alright, once we get all our hip panels on, we can go ahead and start putting our shake cap on here. Just make sure that my panels are at least flush with my 2x2. If they're not, you can go ahead and just take a mallet and fold them over. That way the cap sits down where it's supposed to. Then we're going to take our 6-inch end disc and we're going to put that in an end cap on our hip. You can go ahead and cut out your drip edge so that way the cap will sit back nice and tight. And we'll just place that first one on with those 2x2s. Make sure it's up nice and tight there. And then 2 fasteners, one on either side of the cap, going into that 2x2. Then we'll go ahead and just continue up our hip, putting fasteners on either side. Just make sure that we are keeping our cap nice and straight, where we're not creating any wavy cap situation. And we'll just continue going all the way back up to the top of the hip. When we come to a hip ridge intersection, we'll do the following steps. We're going to take our first cap, find out where our 2x2 is, go ahead and notch that, put a fold on this one here. Then we'll fasten that as normal. Then we'll go ahead and take our caulking. I'm going to go ahead and caulk down that bend. Find our miter. Go ahead and notch that out of that cap. We'll place that down into that caulking there and then fasten on either side. And then we're going to go ahead and take our next cap on our ridge, and we can go ahead and mark out where it hits the cap. Go ahead and put a bend on that, notch out where it hits the cap on the back side here. I like to go ahead and throw some caulking along this as well, just along the ridge here. That'll sit right on top, and then we can go ahead and fasten on either side here. Then we can go ahead continue our ridge. Placing fasteners on either side of the cap. Alright, when we come to a skylight or chimney with the bend up method, we're going to be using the panel as its own flashing. So first of all, we're going to find our measurement on our bottom panel. We're going to find the measurement on either side. You can see here I'm going to find that corner and wrap around the corner and fold down the rest of the panel. And we'll go ahead and place that just like so. And we can go ahead and fasten that one as normal down here at the bottom. And we'll also fasten into our head wall. And then wrap that corner. And then we're going to go ahead and take our measurements of the rest of our panels. We're going to fold up a minimum of 2 inches on our head wall and side wall. I can do more, but I have to have a minimum of 2 inches. So that first panel, we're going to wrap our corner. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find our corner and go ahead and wrap that. Now we're going to want to take our caulking before we put this panel on and caulk down my corner and across that panel. And then we can go ahead and place our panel. We'll fasten that just like a normal panel. Getting our fasteners in our front and also our back. Then we can go ahead and go up the rest of the chimney or skylight with that 2 inch minimum fold up. Close those. Install those. Top of our chimney or skylight, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find that corner once again. And we're going to go ahead and wrap that and extend that minimum of 2 inches and install that panel. Go ahead and install that one. Alright, so once we got our panels on, bent up 2 inch minimum up our head wall, side wall, we can go ahead and flash it. We've got a couple different flashings. We have what we call a 3.5 inch fascia. You can go right over the top like so if you want to use that one. Or we have what we call our Z-bar. And that's just a surface mount that's stone coated. So once we get this done, we're going to go ahead, put it on our head wall, fold our corners, and then we can go ahead and install that. Then we can come back with our sidewall, fold our corners around our front edge, also our back edge, and then we can go ahead and fasten that to the sidewall. Make sure this is looking nice and clean when we're all done. Now we're getting to the back, we're going to need to make a chimney saddle pan. So you can see we'll just take some of our flat stock. We're just going to make our trough. Back of it's going to look just like the back of the panel. And then fold up 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches, whatever you need going back up the chimney or the skylight. So we'll go ahead and take our caulking. Caulk up our corner there. And then you can see we'll just place this Make sure we got a good 3 or 4 inches past our corner, that way our water is getting away from our corner. Then we can go ahead and install that, putting fasteners in the back shelf just like we do our panels. We can fasten back through the back of the chimney or skylight as well. And then when we're all said and done there, we're going to go ahead and use our M-seal on the back shelf of that saddle pan. That way the next panel can come over the top. Since I don't have the profile like I do with the rest of my panel, this will cover that, any gaps we have because of that. And so then we can go ahead, come back with our caulking. Go ahead and caulk around the chimney skylight. And if it's exposed caulking, go ahead and put your granules in that to give it a better look and some UV protection. Alright, we're going to use one of our easy vents. We're going to go ahead and cut out our hole to roughly 29 inches by 5 inches. We recommend putting a metal screen over the top, that way we don't get any insects inside the attic. Then we're just going to go ahead and grab our easy vent. We will go ahead on the top, we're going to use our M-seal to put this on top because this vent creates a flat back, so we just want to make sure we're protecting that. So we're going to put that one down there. This installs just like a panel. Just go ahead and use your same panel fasteners. Fasten down the front nose. One on the left. One on the right. Middle. Couple in the back. And one on each side. And then the next panel will just come over the top. And then go ahead and fasten that down through the top there. Caulk and chip those. I'm doing the sandwich method on our pipes. We'll do the following process. Go ahead and take your base panel out around the pipe, and we'll take our caulking, do 3 sides, and we'll go ahead and form our panel to our pipe jack to our panel. Fasten that in place. Then we're going to go ahead and take our next panel and cut around that pipe jack. Like so. And we'll fasten that panel as normal. Then we'll come back with our caulking. Caulk around the entire pipe jack. And go ahead and take our granules and put our granules into that caulking. The following is our split course method when we're doing a pipe. So first we'll go ahead and cut our bottom base panel out around the pipe. Then we're going to take our pipe jack and anything behind that course we're going to fold over on itself to create a water stop on all 3 sides, as you can see here. Then we'll come back with our caulking underneath that pipe. And we'll go ahead and place this. We can form this, trim this as needed. Fasten that down into the panel, here, into that caulking. Then we'll come back with our panel. We're going to go ahead and find our pipe and just cut around the pipe, like so. And then just fasten as normal. Then when we're all said and done, we'll come back. We're going to go ahead and do our caulking around our pipe. And then we'll take our granules, go ahead and put those into our caulking. Alright, we're running into a step eave. You want to lay it out so the short course is down at my bottom eave. We don't want the short course out here in the middle, it'll break up the pattern. So as you can see here, we're just going to come along, find our bottom course. You have your gutter riser, strip edge, everything like normal. And we're going to come in and do our fold ups on our side. The only thing you'll have to do is probably flatten out that back shelf, just so the next panel can fit nice and tight over it. And we'll install this as normal, putting our fasteners down in the bottom and in the top. Then we're going to locate where the next panel comes over the top of that panel. And we're going to bring in our M-seal. Put our M-seal in there just to protect those screws. We're going to place that. Then the next panel is going to come over the top. And they're going to fasten down into the decking. Just like so. And continue that course. Fastening down through the top. Into that M-seal. Then we'll do our top course as well. And we'll be ready for our cap. Alright, we come up to our cap where it hits that other eave. We're just going to go ahead and notch out our cap. You can see it just knocked out the face on this side. And go ahead and notch underneath here. Notch out your panel so I can tuck this underneath. I'll dig in just like so. And we'll come back, throw our caulking underneath. And we'll go ahead and fasten it. And just finish fastening down our panels. As normal. And then we can come back and touch up any seams or anything like that. And remember, we got to caulk the top screws along our panels and our caps. So we come in, caulk all those. We can go ahead and touch up any seams as well. And we come back with our granules. Put our granules. When installing the solar mount, we'll do the following steps. We're going to go ahead and find our rafter. And then once we find our holes, we want to pre-drill our holes. And then we'll come back with our caulking. Caulk those holes on that mount. We'll go ahead and place this with the lag bolts provided into our pre-drilled holes, into the rafter. And we can go ahead, just fasten as normal. Put our panel screws right over the top. And then the solar can be mounted onto the mount. Alright, when it comes to a dormer valley, do the following steps. We're going to bring our panels up to the valley extension. And then we're going to go ahead and flatten that out with our mallet. And then we can either take our M-seal expandable foam, put that down, or we can take our caulking, put our caulking down. And then we're going to go ahead and take our valley, or our flat stock, and make a valley extension, hem on both sides. And we can make this, cut this to whatever situation we have. Make sure it's extending past the panel and the drip edge, a minimum of 3/4 of an inch. We can set that there. Then we're going to come back 2 layers of caulking underneath there, and then we can go ahead and bring our valley down into it. Lay on top of that caulk. Then we'll be ready to use our washer and screw for our valley. Put our fasteners down through here. Then we'll be ready to place our panels. Fasten those. And then if we decide to use our valley extension or our valley cover, we can come back with our cover over the top here. Use our stitch screws. Go ahead and place those. Alright, so our touch-up kit, we're going to go ahead and caulk our bottom row screws just on the top there. And we'll take our granules. We'll go ahead and throw that in there. And we can do that on any blemishes or any place that needs a little touch-up.